and say, it doesn't work out the way that I want. Now I want to go back. How do I do that? Right? So I can help you either way, right? And so that's one of the things is now you reduce a lot of risk. You help drive adoption of technology. And if it's a good technology, you deploy the heck out of it, and then you get off of some of the legacy environments very quickly. So I provide a number of different use cases. Support quite a bit of use cases. The one that people know me quite a bit for is tech refresh, because that's always a hard thing. It takes a lot of work. It's not very much fun. And this is either server to server. So you could have a bunch of servers sitting on SAN. And let's say that you wanted to go create new servers sitting on a hyperconverged environment or a server sitting on a iSCSI type environment. Well, the way that this works is, it's really hard to do a simple Windows server to go move to different storage technology. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of device drivers and all that. Well, the way that we can help you do it is you can go spin up a new server on the greenfield, just the way that you want with all the device drivers, all clean, all that. And then I can move all the data over. So if it's a Windows server, for example, StorageX can work with it as admin shares, because you would give us admin rights, local admin rights, or a domain admin right. And what we'll be able to do is we can take the $ like C drive, $D, whatever, and then just move that data over. So now you're starting off with a clean, fresh server, but you have all the data that's available. So it gives you a lot of capabilities there, not just NAS refreshes, consolidations. I give you all that. File system restructuring, you get quite a bit of capability there. And then you can also imagine, especially in your environment, if you have one of those super large file systems like Isilon, or whatever. I mean, that's one thing. But many people, they still have some systems in their environment where if the share is getting too full or the volume is getting too full, what do I do, right? And so there's a lot of restructuring you have to do. We have to split things up, create new, move the data around. So we help you with that. Cloud tiering, I give you the ability to be able to tier to different filers, but also to the cloud and back. So I give you that. Namespace management. So if you or your customers are using DFS namespaces, we manage that too. We back that up. We do disaster recovery with it. We can manage the links and update links as things change. So we give you that, that full capability. And that's actually one of the classic capabilities that our products had for 15 years. We give you APIs that you can do DevOps and other things. And the real neat capability is our analytics and categorization. That metadata tagging, that you can give to your lines of businesses, that's a real big capability, because then now that makes it so a data scientist can go find information, and go mine your data. Also help out with file security compliance. Where this comes in is mergers and acquisitions, divestitures. So when you buy another company, they're going to have a different Active Directory domain. So you have one domain here and one domain here. Now, let's say if you want to sync the data between the two domains, how do you do that? Because the SIDs are a little bit different. And then some technologies don't handle SID history very well. So there's all those types of different challenges. So with StorageX, what I do is I can actually do a number of things with security. I can inherit new permissions, repermissioning project, do SID mapping. So if you're a SID at this old company, user 1 at old company, and your new ID is going to be user.1 at new company, I can go ahead and I can change that. So I can go ahead and sync the data up or move the data, and then I can go ahead and reassign the SID so that the person who has that access has that access. So that's big. I also had a customer, they found thousands of users, I think it was 4,000 users, who are no longer employed with their company. And with that, they found 4,000 home shares, that they were storing of people who are no longer with the company. Nobody was accessing it, by the way, right? Now, how many, that's probably almost everyone has some of that, right? So we can help with that in terms of cleaning that up, but also to move that data, off of primary storage and then reassign it, to somebody else. So the approach, so when I talk about, doing data management and being able to work between all the different silos, there's a number of different products that look at doing this, and they'll all say they'll work with different technologies or technology agnostic. And what I'll tell you is, in general, the approach that many people take is the in-band approach, which is that they're a gateway or they're virtualization software, or they're doing some type of stubbing or sharding, which is breaking up the data into a whole bunch of little pieces and storing it in different places. the critical thing about that is that when you do that, you no longer own the data. The data at this point is now owned by that appliance, by that gateway, by that namespace. Now, it's a fantastic thing when it's working and when you first start out. You know, I'll put a copy out there, you know, as one of those really cool technologies, you know, back in the day. Then of course, you had to pull it out because it was no longer supported, you know, and it was very challenging. So we had a lot of customers run into that type of situation. But that's one of the key things you have. And if you want to get access to your data, you have to go through the in-band data processor to be able to access it. So your data pretty much is trapped. It's in jail. You know, our CTO, he was a customer at a number of financial institutions in Wall Street. So he encountered this over and over and over again. And so when we were designing Data Dynamics Storage X, one of the real key things he wanted to make sure was we didn't do that, right? So in the Data Dynamics world, the way this is all set up is that Storage X runs in the background. And you know, we have this high-scale universal data engine. So you know, what you do is the more workload that you want to get moved, the more bandwidth you want, the more of these universal data engines you would deploy. You know, and what you would have is you would always have direct access to your data, regardless of where it's at. You know, you always own your data, and I don't have any agents or anything else that gets in the way. I get out of the way. You know, so that now gives you that flexibility of trying different things out and trying different technologies. There's ways to do things transparent, you know, when you want to do that, but we're all about industry standards. The whole key point here is, in our design, the way that we design our architecture is first around you. You know, we think about you and making sure that you always own your data. And that the reality is that no matter how much IT tells lines of businesses or tells individual customers, put your data here. You know where they put it? They put it wherever they want, right? You know, and you know, go tell a line of business, you have to do it this way. You know, they'll say okay, and then they'll do whatever they want anyways. And so the thing is that we want to try to help make sure that we reduce the risk. And so let's say they made the right decision one time, maybe they made the wrong decision another time. You can use StorageX's universal data engine to move the data to where they need to. So for example, I put a bunch of things on the cloud. And let's say they had a bunch of PII and PHI information on it. Oops, right? You know, so now we can move that information back, you know, into the data center, you know, where it's protected. You know, and the real key thing is like anytime that you can give your enterprise apps, give them the ability to do the analytics they need and to be able to get at the data, you know, when they need it. You know, it's fantastic. So you know, that's really the key thing there about freeing your data. You know, so a couple real key points to think about is, you know, you want to look at how do I automate and simplify data mobility, movement of data within my environment, because data needs to be constantly where you need it. The other thing you want to think about is, you know, how do you adopt the new technologies and do it in a low-risk way? And also, like, how do I do archive? And how should I be looking at that a little bit differently now that S3 storage, you know, gives me such a great economics, you know, behind it? So a little bit about our company and the set of customers that we've been able to work with is, first, we've had the honor of having 24 out of the Fortune 100 customers be our customers. And so that gives you a sense in terms of the type of impact and reach that we've had and the type of trust. 12 of the world's largest banks, half of them are my customers. And they use me to move a lot of data. You know, so a number of them, you know, they have tens of petabytes of data that are constantly in my system, you know, that's constantly working. The technology itself is 15 years proven in the field. From the very first, you know, capabilities that we've had. We've helped customers optimize 160 petabytes of data, which has actually led to 80 years of project time savings. So this is calendar time, 80 years. I mean, you know, heck, that's multiple times my age, right? You know, so it's quite a bit that we're able to do, and $80 million in cost savings from total cost of savings. So you know, there's a lot of impact, you know, that we can do, you know, in your environment, in your customers' environment. So you know, this is you know, this is certainly what we can help you with, and you can come visit us in the booth. We're at booth number 9, you know, upstairs. I got a demo environment up there, so I can show you a demo, show you how it all looks, show you how it works. So any questions?
So this is all file-based movement?
Yeah, it's all unstructured data. So it's all file-based, all like Windows files, Linux/Unix files, you know, anything that speaks SMB, you know, NFS, and S3. So S3 would be like Amazon Web Services, but then you also like StorageGrid, ECS, IBM Cloud Object Storage, a number of other players, Scality.
So your process just moves the files and keep track of whatever you feed it?
Yeah, so what we do is, so we give you a couple different modes of operation. So one is, if all you want me to do is just move data, I just move the data. I do bulk moves of the data. And I can manage the whole migration process, and I can manage the whole cutover process. If you wanted me to do analytics of your environment and put metadata tagging, I have a database which, when I scan your environment in, I put that information in a database that a data analyst can then go through, analyze that data, and then categorize it, put tags and metadata information associated with it. Now, when you decide that you want that data to go be moved to S3, when you do that, I flush that data plus all the metadata into S3. So then all that metadata tag information that the data analyst put on it, all sits within the S3 storage.
So what differentiates you from like Commvault backups and all that stuff? I mean, you said I put the data in storage and I access that. Commvault does the same thing, right?
Yeah, so I'd say that the real...
Is it different? Like maybe I'm not understanding.
Yeah, so the way I would look at, let's just call it backup software that does archiving, is that what they do is they add a lot of value. So they take the data, they might do dedupe, they might do encryption, they might do something, and then they store it onto some storage. And that storage could be S3. But the only way you could, but you can't analyze that data. So that data is just kind of sitting there and is locked up, and you can't do anything with it. And now when you want that data, you ask Commvault and it gives it back to you, right? So with us, the way that we store native S3. It's native, and so you can actually use like Amazon's Athena service to go and query the data, get information from it. So now instead of having it, where we quote add value with compression and all that, we just put it out there natively, and we let the S3 storage, be accessed and worked with natively and searched natively. That's the key difference.
So what would you do with existing data that's been backed up?
Yeah, so you can still keep that, or if you want, you can also use it to migrate that data. I mean, as long as there's a CIFS or an NFS interface to it, we can go and get that. So for example, some people, let's say, use a cloud tiering appliance, or they have like stubs, in their in their NAS that point to archives. Some of them do. There's different ways. So if it's a stub-based one, we can go in, and if you do a pass-through mode, I can go get that data from the archive, pull it out, and then work with it that way, right? Now, if it's like archived and there's no stubs and no access to it, then I need to have you, restore that, like rehydrate it somewhere, right? And then once you rehydrate it, then I can go ahead and, and move that. So that's how you do that. But the way I do it, if I'm, I mean, my company's been around for a while, but let's just say if we're not, all the data is stored and self-described in S3, so that you can just use an S3 browser, and get all that information.
How do you manage the kind of multi-domain question?
No. These are very good questions. I'm sure everyone's thinking of it, and everyone's afraid to ask.
How do you manage that?
How do I manage access?
Because you said you have, let's say, assume you have Linux file system, you have Windows,
Right.
and you have CIFS here.
Right.
How do you
So
keep track of that? You said
I let the file system keep track. So the, one of the things I've learned in IT is when you have a copy, it's wrong, right? When you have a copy, it's wrong, right? And so we always work directly with the file system, no matter what it is. I don't use any APIs or anything, other than for configuration. But when I'm working with the data, I always go directly to the file system. I never trust anything in between. When I go to the file system, let's say when I do a data migration, you have to give me the right set. You have to give StorageX the right set of authority. So in SMB, you would have to give me backup operator, and you would also have to give me either a local admin or domain admin. And when you do that, I'll take all the file, the metadata, and the permissions, and I will transfer from one system to the other. So all that remains intact, right? Now, when I'm moving to S3, which is a little more interesting, when I go do that, what I do is I take that data, and then you give me an S3 bucket, right? And then so you give me the credentials S3 bucket. When I store that, what I do is I store one object as the actual payload data, and I create another object which represents all the metadata and permissions that was over on the SMB world. So I save it, right? And then when you ask me to restore it, when I restore it, I will restore the payload data, but I also restore all the permissions information. And so that's how I make sure that I protect your permissions, during that.
But when I give you access to the shared drive,
Yes.
I give you access in admin,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
How would you trickle back to the groups that belongs to that? Because you are an owner of the shared drive of everything there, but there is groups that own this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm an admin and backup operator, I look like a backup piece of software, right? So when I read the data with those permissions, with this privilege, what I can do is I can get the data, I can get the metadata, and I can get all the permissions and owner groups, SIDs, and all that stuff. So I get all that information because of that privilege, and then when I write the data and I say use all these privileges.
I know. But you have multiple groups that accessing the same thing. Like
Correct.
Group A accessing this shared, group B accessing the same shared, group C.
Yes.
I'm giving you an admin right to read that shared folder.
Mm-hmm.
You know that this is group A is accessing this group B. Let's go back to the Active Directory, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I go to Active Directory, to validate everything, right? So I am using Active Directory. I go back to Active Directory, but yeah, I bring that over.
How about encryption?
Yeah. So what about encryption? Like encryption at rest? I don't do any encryption in my software, but let's say that if you have the data and it's encrypted at rest, so if it's encrypted at rest here and encrypted at rest there, when you go work with SMB data or NFS data, all that data has to be on a private network or all that because, but when it's at rest encrypted here, when I store it over here, whatever that technology is, we'll encrypt it at rest.
Because you're not reading the data, you're just reading the.
I'm just getting a stream. I'm just getting a stream of data. So
So it doesn't, whatever it is, there's going to be.
as long as it's readable through CIFS and NFS, I'm a pipe, right? I just suck data here and just put data there. So I mean, it's very basic. I mean, what I'm doing is very, very basic. But you guys know, I mean, technology, if you do very simple things and you just do it really well and you just build on top of it, that's really what we've done.
And do you keep track of like you said, copying it and doing all that stuff? And if it's a live system,
Mm-hmm.
you keep track of the changes of that?
Yeah. Yeah, and so when I say keep track, the file system keeps track. What I do is, so let's say so let's say I'm moving files. So there's a three-step process. So first is doing a baseline copy, where I just get as much data as possible. Then I do incrementals. And I can do an incremental for as long as you want, but you would schedule that, like maybe once a day at night, we would run. Then I would go and scan the file system to see what's changed. Right? And then I would grab what's changed and I would copy that over. So in a replication process, let's say that if you're doing things with one vendor on like one vendor platform, it's very fast, right? But it's very expensive. Now when I do this, because I'm doing this at the file level, I work, but I'm not going to be as fast as what the native vendor can do. But I can do it across a whole bunch of different environments. Right? That's a trade-off. I think next session is going to be starting soon. I mean, no one's here yet, but
Good.
yeah. But we can certainly answer more questions up at our booth. You're happy to do so and show a demo and all that stuff. Right, very good questions. All right, thank you.